really like that choice of music. Today, we're starting a new episode of Malden Talks, hosted by your host, Joe Gray. Today's guest is Nick Forgione. Nick's decided to come out here on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and we're going to talk about, some heavy topics this time, some political topics, about voting, about wrestling, some intersectionality, interesting stuff. Now, Nick, you're going to start educating me on something that you are very interested in called ranked choice voting. I don't know anything about it. I don't know why this is theoretically better than normal voting. I get the impression it's different. Could you please explain to me what this is and what's the purpose of ranked choice voting?
Thanks, Joe. Glad to be here. Ranked choice voting is a method of electing officials that lets people choose their first choice, second choice, third choice, based on how many candidates there are.
Yes.
And what ranked choice voting does is that it prevents any candidate from winning by plurality. So a candidate, say there's a three-way race, and a candidate gets 45% of the vote, and the other two candidates get 20-odd% each.
Yes.
Ranked choice voting would prevent a plurality victory that more than half of voters did not want, similar to what happened in Fall River recently. That would be a good example with the recall election. What ranked choice voting does is that it allows voters to select the candidates in the order that they would prefer them, so first, second, third, fourth, however many. If no candidate gets 50% or more on the first round of voting, the candidate that placed last, their votes are set aside. And the second choice of the people who voted for that last place candidate,
Yes.
those votes are then added to the remaining candidates. And you would repeat that process until one candidate had 50% or more voters.
That sounds complicated. I understand what you're doing, kind of, but I'm going to ask a dumb question. Why?
What we have seen, and this has happened at more than one level. There's a lot of precedent for it. There'll be a candidate who gets less than 50% of the vote. We use Fall River again. You have a mayor who was unpopular, to be charitable about it.
Yes.
More than half the voters in Fall River did not want him. They wanted somebody else.
And if more than half the votes were split up between second, third, and fourth person, that's where you get the...
Yes. In that election, there were, I believe, 5 other candidates. And in that case, you actually would have, if you looked at the breakdowns, you had, Correa had like 35%, Coogan was second place with 30, and then the remaining 40% was broken up among 3 or 4 other candidates. And it would have taken probably, I want to say at least 2, maybe 3 rounds to bring somebody up to 50% or more. But the idea is that you would not have a candidate win by plurality, and your winning candidate would be more likely to be somebody that most voters could at least live with. They may not be thrilled about it, but they could at least live with, rather than having less than half of the voters happy and over half of the voters some degree of unhappy.
I understand where you're going with this, but just to play sort of devil's advocate in a way, why the need to make voters happy?
Well, they are voters, they are.
You know, it's kind of a weird, twisted philosophical spin that I'm playing with here. Well, if under the current system, the person with the highest vote total wins, or in some cases it goes to a runoff between the top two candidates, and then the person with the highest vote total then between the remaining two wins, doesn't that achieve the same sort of end of making the voters happy in the end if it goes to a runoff between the top two and people get to choose anyways?
Actually, the runoff is actually a good way to explain ranked choice voting. Another term for ranked choice voting is instant runoff.
It's an instant runoff because then you get to count the votes from the bottom up.
Yeah, and it happens on the spot.
Okay, correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, but I'm trying to figure this out. So then it would be an instant vote tally because of the ranked choice system.
Yes, rather than having every voter show up again for a runoff, because they've listed their voters, or rather the candidates, in order of preference. The election officials would have something to work from on election night.
You do realize this is a big cultural shift for a lot of people in a lot of places. Excuse me. I've heard of this ranked choice voting system being implemented in several places around the country, like Maine being one of them.
Yes.
I don't know how it works, but is the intention to have this implemented everywhere, or is your group advocating on a town by town, city by city? Where are we going with this?
I'm not a member of Voter Choice Massachusetts. They are the primary advocates for ranked choice voting here. They would ultimately like to see ranked choice voting used statewide. Yes, it's not so much a new idea, but it's an idea that hasn't been distributed much.
In addition to a new idea, to get that statewide, there's going to have to be a big cultural shift, and I'm going to take a wild stab. That's going to have to get through Beacon Hill. How do you implement something like that without changing the Mass General laws?
You would have to go through Beacon Hill, yes, and I agree it is a cultural shift. The real obstacle is that it is an admittedly cumbersome issue to explain. It's not streamlined. It's not sexy. And I know right now, people from Voter Choice Massachusetts watching this are like, "Oh, yes, it is." No, it isn't. I'm sorry, guys, it's not. But it would make elections more competitive. It would discourage the nastier campaigns, because if there's say a four-way race, somebody who is a first or a credible second place candidate would not want to have offended or alienated supporters of a third or a fourth place candidate. So it would encourage candidates to maybe play a little nicer, focus more on issues, and most importantly, it would give voters more competitive elections and more options.
There's a key term in there in what you're saying, which kind of makes me chuckle a little bit on the inside. This is very interesting and aspirational, but really, this is Massachusetts. I don't think the people in Beacon Hill want more competitive elections. Think about it. Who's running Beacon Hill? Why would they want to change? They own
Yes.
the elections. The people who are in charge, there's no incentive to change a system that they control. That's the hurdle I'm having. I agree with you. This sounds like it's efficient and it would be good for the voters, but
Well,
convincing the people in charge to change the way,
Well-
think about it.
well, I mean, for Beacon Hill, it's every 2 years.
Yes.
We have elections, and the people on Beacon Hill ultimately are answerable to the voters, which is,
You know what? But before we move on to the next topic, the only way forward I see that this probably has a chance is maybe some voter referendum. Force it through, and then hold their feet to the fire. Because as good as you're making this sound, I don't see a way forward. Those people on Beacon Hill aren't gonna vote themselves out of office, potentially.
well,
Because that's how they're gonna think.
this isn't about voting people out of office.
Yeah, but Nick, you're right, I agree with you. But I'm telling you how they think.
I agree, there is going to be reluctance, and it's going to be quite sensible reluctance from the perspective of people who have been functioning in the system as it is.
Yes.
And that is completely rational, but the system as it is now still requires officials to be answerable to voters. So
That's why I'm
the key
suggesting
here
some sort of
is-
referendum.
Yes, exactly. The key is to reach as many voters as possible and to convince them that ranked choice voting has value. And then through a referendum or some other method,
Whatever, yeah, some method.
then ranked choice voting could be pushed to people on Beacon Hill, and if they did not support it, and that would be a conversation they could have with voters at the ballot box.
Oh, that makes sense. But now, there's some more things you'd like to talk about. Could you explain to me how we get to this? You're a wrestling fan. I'm an old school wrestling fan. You know, I'm from the 1970s and 1980s era wrestling. You're more modern than I am. So what are we talking about these days with wrestling and politics?
Well, Joe Gray, I'd like to. No, sorry.
No, don't be. That's funny.
With respects and apologies to Hulk Hogan and Gene Okerlund.
Oh, jeez. Leave the dead guys alone.
No, Hogan's still alive.
Yeah.
He may be dead to some fans, but
Debatably.
he is still
Debatably.
alive. Yeah.
He was dead when he was wrestling. He couldn't wrestle. Come on.
We are.
I got a secret for you, Nick.
You like Ultimate Warrior, right?
No, I got a secret for you, Nick. It was make-believe. It's a show.
You know what?
They're great athletes, but it's a show.
And great showman.
Yes.
And great showman. But I am going to take a quote from Mick Foley.
Yes.
The real world is faker than wrestling.
Sometimes, yes, it is.
Which kind of gets to wrestling and politics. A lot of the skill sets used in wrestling
Mhm.
are used in politics and
Oh,
vice versa.
I completely agree.
You know, gimmicks work. But one thing, and a lot of not just the skill sets, but even all the same dynamics apply.
Yes.
You have to reach people. Even if they hate you, you want them to know you. And there are a lot of wrestlers who, at some point in their careers, they get a little older. You know,
Mhm.
for some strange reason, they don't want to take an 8-foot fall anymore.
Some strange reason.
Yeah, I can't imagine why. I can't imagine how that loses its appeal. But a lot of these guys go into politics, and I'm gonna be honest. I've been lucky enough to have spent some time in a locker room And a lot of those guys, they are politically minded. You can have political conversations, and this is kind of a shot at American politics, I hate to say it, but a lot of them are actually more reasonable than some officials, some pundits. You can have people, they can disagree a lot more civilly, because, to be honest, wrestling has higher standards for ethics and decorum and tradecraft than politics.
I could see that.
But a lot of these guys, you know, they do go into politics, and they do use a lot of the same skills. Jesse Ventura, Glenn Jacobs.
Yes.
Jesse,
in my opinion, is a loose cannon. Loose between the ears. Just any old garbage would come out. And sometimes he'd make sense, but more often than not, like, what the heck was that about? I don't know about Jesse.
Yeah, the last 15 years,
he's gone downhill. You know,
Yeah, the last 15 years have not been his best.
No. But Glenn Jacobs, you know, he seems stable. He seems to be doing the right thing. He seems to be a really good guy who's really trying hard to help. He became mayor in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Man, I miss Kane, the Big Red Machine.
Big Red Monster,
yeah. I used to watch that. Back in the silly days when they still had magic and stuff in the wrestling ring. I like that phase.
We should have used The Undertaker's intro for the intro music.
You know, back in the 70s was even sillier than that.
Yeah.
They went through their faces. I still remember George the Animal Steel. His green tongue. I mean, they were just nuts back in the 70s.
Oh yeah.
Or Chief J. Strongbow, or Ricky the Steamboat Dragon.
I remember Bobby the Brain Heenan from the 80s.
Bobby the Brain, Bruno Sammartino. Oh, those are some good old days.
Yeah, and it's just something I've noticed, because I've always liked politics. I liked wrestling when I was a kid. I got back into it not quite 10 years ago. And I just noticed there was you'd see a lot of the same.
Don't take this personally, Nick. I'm assuming you're not gonna get into professional wrestling.
Truth be told, I am a wrestling school dropout.
But, so you tried?
Yes, I did. And
I no idea. That's a lot of hard work.
Yes, it is.
I've got sympathy. You've got my respect. At least you tried.
Yeah. I was one of the worst students that particular wrestling school had ever of all time. I was terrible. There's no way to say it.
Yeah, but on from there. Okay.
But I
so you tried wrestling. That didn't work too well.
No.
You know what I'm going to ask next.
No concussions. No.
Any thoughts or consideration to get into politics yourself someday?
Well, I am in politics. I'm not going to run if that's.
I'm not going to run. That's what I was asking.
Okay. No, I have
no plans to run for office.
No intention of running. No plans.
So you heard that here first, people.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's not going to pull papers.
I'll be honest. I would be a terrible candidate. If people watching at home have not figured this out, my mic skills are atrocious.
But Nick, your honesty. You may not have microphone skills, but at least you're upfront about it. Sometimes voters appreciate people being honest with them, looking them in the eye and telling them what's what.
Oh.
It may not get you votes, but at least you can sleep at night.
Honesty actually is a damn good gimmick.
But like I said,
voters do respond to it.
Some. But some voters, prefer to hear what they want to hear, not necessarily what is.
A surprising number, and I've done a lot of campaigning. In fact, I've knocked your door at least once.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of voters, they do appreciate the honesty. Even if it's not necessarily a comforting answer or the answer that they want, they do appreciate it. And
Is that when the voter puts you in a chokehold and does a sidewalk slam on you?
I've never
for being too honest?
Never been given a sidewalk slam from a voter. I've had a few voters tell me to get the hell off their porch, which I do. I respect that. Always respect that.
I'm kidding you. We are in the wrestling and politics section here.
Oh, it's a rip.
Come on, man. But you know what? You're right. We gotta do what we gotta do, and sometimes people appreciate the truth. Maybe someday you'll get it. So, anything else you want to talk about? We're calling it a night today.
I think we can call it a day.
Okay. I want to thank Nick Forgione for stopping by and having an awesome discussion with me, and a whole lot of interesting topics we talked about. Tune in next time, and I don't know what we're going to talk about next, but whoever it is, I guarantee it's going to be interesting. This is Joe Gray from Malden Talks, signing off. Say hi.
Good night.
Wave. Good night.